worker layoffs
Yeah.
this year. What are your thoughts on that? Is there any way to change his mind? $10 billion is a lot to cut from the state budget.
Well, I think we want to look at the state budget and see what the governor proposes on February 1st. I think everybody has known that reductions somewhere are going to have to take place, and that the state workforce is going to have to absorb some of those cuts. We're hearing 10, we're hearing 15,000. We don't know how much of this is phased in, how much is planned to be immediate, how much bumping will occur, whether this is done by attrition over a 2-year period, over a 1-year period, over a 6-month period. Dealing with the Patterson administration, when it was a question of just under 900 employees, it was very, very frustrating for another reason. You would ask, where is this going to happen? Now, if it's going to be over 62 counties, that's one thing. But in my case, I represent a good portion of Albany County and indirectly the capital region with my colleagues. If they're all going to happen in Albany, New York, that would be a tsunami for us. That would be an absolute disaster. The 900, I have never gotten an accurate count, and the unions have never gotten an accurate count because of the complicated bumping rights of employees and their fallback rights that they have. So I still don't know to what exact extent it affected us. But one of the reasons that Albany, which doesn't have a great deal of industry, but survives on education, the financial industry, and hospitals, the universities, it's a town that doesn't have an awful lot of places to go because all of those institutions are cutting back and freezing jobs. So we're very, very concerned.
Yeah, the bulk of state employees are based up in the capital region.
That's
so
right.
A $10,000 to $15,000 state worker loss could be devastating to this region and to the economy, which was a concern with the 900 state workers.
Well, and also I've seen people who say, well, that's the public sector. But, you know, I can remember when we had problems with the recession in the early 90s, suddenly people that ran small restaurants, dry cleaning businesses, all of those small shops would say, business is terrible. And I'd say, well, who do you think your customers were? Who do you think was paying your salary? It may be private sector, but that stimulus that goes any time that a paycheck is generated affects everyone. And when you start attacking a major payroll in a community, then it's very, very difficult. I also suspect there's going to be a spin-off of people in public education, of people in cities, towns, and villages, and county governments, because these cuts will multiply to all levels of government. So we're very, very concerned.
Yeah, there's a lot of concern in terms of, you know, finding the $10 billion to cut. A good portion of that will likely come from these layoffs. But among Assembly Democrats, there's been a lot of talk of, you know, extending the millionaires tax, because at this point, many have said there need to be some sort of borrowing or some sort of more revenue raisers in order to help close this budget gap. Are you on the same page with some of your Assembly colleagues in supporting that?
I think you never say never. I'm going to look at it. I know the commitment of Governor Cuomo in an ideal world is no borrowing and no taxes, and that means no extension of taxes, which would include the millionaire tax. But I suspect we're not going to be able to meet our goals somewhere along the line. There's going to have to be a compromise. So I won't commit one way or the other till I see the whole package.
It's certainly not an ideal world right now.
It's not an ideal world, and I suspect that New York probably has a lot more millionaires than other states.
And you don't think they'll go anywhere during?
Well,
the concern of
they didn't after 9/11. We raised them temporarily. They did stay here to give them credit. A lot of our people don't live here now, but they make a living out of New York. A lot of them live in Connecticut, New Jersey, and Florida. I think those are the three biggest areas. And I think we have to just look at the whole picture.
So your main concern right now is just making sure that the Cuomo administration communicates a little better with lawmakers and with the unions about where exactly these job cuts are going to be.
Well, I know the governor's making efforts, like he's bringing in selected legislators, and eventually I think we'll hit all of us to go over and have breakfast with him in smaller groups in the mansion and I think he wants to have good communication. No legislator wants to read significant news in a newspaper, not if you have a partnership, and we are, after all, equal partners in our constitutional system.